We should all be shopping our homeowners insurance, reshopping it every single year. Things are changing and premiums are just going through the roof. So we're going to talk about questions to ask, what's really important and what's not. There might be some things you don't need. And I have here today the very best. Kathy is so full of knowledge and she's one of our faves. We are going to have a Q&A section at the end, so feel free to just put them in there. I'll see them. Truth About Insurance, you've got Kathy and I. So Jen Hernandez, Legacy Mutual Mortgage, you're probably on. You got invited if you're one of my past clients. So thank you. I want to bring you more value. So about 3 or 4 times a year, I'm going to do some of these webinars where I can bring y'all an expert to just help you with your home and having fun at home as a homeowner. So we're going to bring you some good information. And today it is insurance. And Kathy is with Leger Insurance. She is an expert and she's the one that's going to be, she's going to be the one I'm just moderating is really what's going to happen. So Kathy, thank you
Yes,
for
ma'am.
being here.
Thank you so much for having me. My job, I know, is to keep everybody awake, so I'm going to try really hard to do that.
Yeah. And how long have you been in insurance? Tell us how long you've.
I have just passed 21 years, so this is officially the one thing that I know a lot about, and I don't know much about anything else. So I find it exciting and interesting, but hopefully I can bring some of that knowledge to you guys as homeowners and realtors.
Oh, awesome. Good, good. So, state of the Texas market, carriers, like they're leaving Texas. There's parts of like they won't insure this side of Houston. Like it's weird. What is going on?
Yeah, so every year, and I think I can say post freeze out of all the years I've been in insurance, once we got past that 2021 freeze, it's really looked a lot different in the insurance market for homeowners. Just like you said, in some cases, carriers completely left the state. I don't see that so much anymore as I see just areas of Texas. They will leave certain zip codes. They'll close zip codes for a certain period of time, maybe for a year or two if they anticipate any kind of impending threats. But definitely every carrier will go in and tighten those guidelines. We're talking about underwriting guidelines, acceptability guidelines, and the most painful of all, I think, are these inspections that most companies will require now after you've purchased the policies, then they go in and they're going to inspect exterior, sometimes even interior, just to double check and make sure that this is the type of risk that they want. Definitely, the bigger the home, the more careful they are with those inspections, or the more thorough, I should say, that they are. So that's something to be mindful of as the value of the home increases or as the size of the home increases. So both of these things are going on. This past year has been pretty mild in terms of weather, believe it or not, at least in our areas in the coastal counties here in Houston. So that's helped, and I've seen a little bit more of the opening of zip codes again. So we're always really excited to see that. I've seen some rate stabilization, which is great. So we just continue to hope for mild weather patterns as the new year comes in.
So, what are some of the biggest factors that you're seeing driving these premium increases?
Definitely weather events. As the weather across the country seems to have certain hits throughout the country, it still will affect us, so just not as much. Definitely, we all know that the cost of labor, the cost of materials will absolutely drive up the cost for an insurance company to rebuild that home. That's not a cost they're willing to absorb, so unfortunately, they forward that on to us as the homeowners. Claims, as the claim count continues to increase and they have higher loss ratios, of course, they want to come back and rate accordingly for that. And then reinsurance. So, something that a lot of people don't know is that insurance companies actually have insurance as well. And those, I have to say, are really the big bosses of the way these premiums work. So, if your homeowner's insurance company has a rate increase on their insurance, it's like in the millions. So it's a very big deal, and these reinsurance companies get to make the rules. Like you're going to have a 30% increase on your insurance coverage if you don't drop X amount of households or reduce the risk. So that's a big area that can definitely affect the increase on your own homeowner's policy as it begins to trickle down.
So have you seen a pattern of who's been hit? I don't know why I put DFW in there because we're not in DFW, but hello. Hey, Dallas. So coastal, rural homeowners, like, have you seen a pattern of who's hit the most?
I mean, honestly, the only pattern is that everybody gets hit. And that's sort of the good and the bad of it. I think it was actually very mindful of you to put DFW because that is a specific area. So these three things you mentioned here, they each kind of have their own challenges. Coastal, obviously, we have the big named storm exposure that we have here along our coastal counties. But DFW is problematic in that sort of area because it kind of start when you get into that area of Texas and north, they start running into Tornado Alley, right? So these are not predictable. They are more frequent. They can happen throughout the entire year, not just hurricane season. And also very problematic for these areas is just really frequent hail. So we all know that as we get to DFW, they're going to be rated much harder every time there's a hailstorm. And so they're going to see that rate increase. And then rural areas of Texas, their challenge is often going to be with fire protection. So as it becomes more rural of an area, the fire stations are farther apart from where you live. And so ironically, it's the other side of the policy that gets rated there. So that's the all other perils area. Not so much a problem when it comes to, the hurricanes and the tornadoes, but they have their own issue, which is going to be that fire prevention and how quickly can somebody get out there to put out that fire. So everybody's got problems. I'd say that the best areas to live in Texas, if you don't want to pay a lot on insurance, are going to be inland and away from Tornado Alley. So areas like Austin and San Antonio, phenomenal rates. You would be shocked. College Station, it's practically free, at least as it is right now. So, but these three areas, great points that you're making here.
Okay, no, good. I had a question that popped up that I know is not farther in the slides, but like something that I've seen change, we do loans every day, right? On flood insurance, even if we're not in a flood zone, those premiums have gone up. It used to be, I remember that, oh yeah, get flood insurance. If you're not in a flood zone, it's only like $400 a year. And now they're grading it based on what? Like, how is that determined?
Yeah, great question. In 2004, when I became an agent, everybody in X zone paid $278. It didn't matter if you were in an X zone in Clear Lake somehow, or if you were in an X zone in Colorado, right? Everybody paid the same for their flood insurance, and it was very inexpensive. The other positive of 2021 is that FEMA realized that their rating was really flawed if Colorado can pay the same as Houston. So they basically re-rated. So to answer your question, they look at everything now, really everything that they kind of should have before, but we got away with it. So they look at things now like how close are you to a body of water? What is that body of water? Is it a little bayou or is it like the Gulf? Um, has your home flooded at all before? And then one of the real kickers that they didn't look at before is the size of your home. So, Jen, if you've got a 10,000 square foot home valued over 2 million, and I have a smaller 2,000 square foot home valued at 250, 1 inch of water in my house will cost FEMA much less than 1 inch of water in your house, just by the span of that first floor, the materials that you probably have versus what I have. So the rating for flood now is much more specific. So you will find people in Zone X in some parts of Houston are paying over $3,000 for that flood insurance. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
very different than what we had prior to 21.
Wow, wow. Interesting. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about, and remember, put your questions in the chat. Don't worry, I'll be going back through in a little bit. So, Texas Fair Plan. Some people don't know what that is. And people are being forced into it? Why are they calling it like, why am I hearing this is like last resort? Tell me about that. And put in the chat. I'd like to see if any of you have been gotten that notice, like, oh, you got to do Texas Fair Plan. That would be interesting to know. But what is that, Kathy?
Yes, definitely. So the Texas Fair Plan is a state funded insurance program that is solely reserved for the homes that do not qualify in the standard market for whatever reason. It could be a regular home that has six claims and nobody wants it. It could be a home that's just in an area that has a much higher threat. So you will find this in really coastal areas, often like beach homes and beachfront homes. It can often be a problem. This is not something to voluntarily go through. And unfortunately, we have seen in the past that perhaps the agent finds a better rate in Fair Plan, so they agree to move the client from a perfectly good private admitted market carrier and put them in Fair Plan. This is a big no-no. And so we don't want to do that. It's a very limited policy simply because it's state funded. It is the bare minimum, maybe 8 perils total that are covered, and it leaves a lot of gaps in your coverage. But it's important because it's kind of the big stuff like fire and lightning and smoke. And if you can't get that elsewhere, you really do need to insure your home and protect against those losses. So it serves a purpose, but it's not a voluntary thing at all.
Okay. But if people are like, I heard as well that like I've seen people that we're doing new homes for, if you get denied by two or more carriers, Texas
Yeah.
Fair Plan is available to you. So if that's the only game in town and they don't have as much coverage, like you don't have any other choice, right?
You do. I mean, I alone write through 10 or 11 every single day when it comes to home carriers, and I really can't remember. I can probably count on one or two hands total in the whole 21 years that I had nobody but Fair Plan. One was one of those crazy six claims, they called every year and nobody wants that.
Okay.
So, kind of not the same thing, but you're right. That is a loophole. Technically, if I can find two home companies that deny your home, I get to put you in Texas Fair Plan. I'm not trying to do that as a
Um,
good agent, so that's what happens. An agent's
okay.
license is technically safe if I can prove that two people told you no. We all know
Got
in this insurance
you.
market, it's easy to find two carriers that don't want your home. But again,
Um,
we're not we wouldn't want to try to do that. We're not looking for the loophole here. It's not a great policy. And honestly, the
um,
rates really aren't that great anymore. They've totally caught on to that. And so sometimes even more expensive.
okay. So next question, can insurers change or remove coverage without clear notice? Can they just send you a memo, a letter and say, oh, hey, by the way, we're dropping you or whatever?
Yes, they can kind of do whatever they want, particularly when you are a new policy. So they've got 30 to 60 days or so to decide if they want to continue your coverage solely based on what they see through inspections specifically. So yes, yes, and yes, they can send you any notice they want, including cancellation. But it does have to be clear notice and it needs to be clear written notice. So if it's something minor that you can fix, they're going to let you know and give you plenty of time to fix it. But if it's something like, gosh, we've just looked at the overall condition of this home, it's totally unacceptable. We're giving you 30 days to find another carrier. And ideally, if you have a personal agent, they're getting that memo before you get it. So hopefully you don't find out by mail. It should be that your personal agent has called and said, "Hey, Jen, I just got news. We didn't pass. Here's some of the options that I'm working on, and we're going to need to decide which way you want to go from here." But there's always somebody else that we can find to insure your home.
But like mid policy, they're not going to just cancel you midway. They would let you finish the term and say, hey, we're not going to renew you. You know, is that what they
Yes,
would do?
that's true. That's true.
Okay.
Non-renewal note. Once you get past the onboarding process, if they haven't caught you within that first 30 to 60-day period, then it's highly unlikely you're going to get a midterm cancellation, but you absolutely can get a non-renewal. And they can send you something like, we're going to continue for the duration of the policy term, but we've switched this type of coverage for you. Perhaps they've excluded the roof or something. So it could be something still very important that we may not want to sit there for the rest of the policy term.
Why are insurance companies checking credit ratings? Is this new? Is it legal? I think they've always checked them, right? I mean,
Always, from at
yeah,
least I can vouch for the always as of 2004 when I got in.
yeah.
Insurance, it's something called actually, it's not exactly your FICO, so we don't have access to that. The carrier is checking something called a CIS. It stands for Consumer Insurance Score or Credit-Based Insurance Score. It goes up to 999. It's kind of weird. You can have a separate auto CIS score versus home CIS score, but a good FICA, a high FICA is indicative of a high CIS score. So they're checking kind of the same stuff that you check on a daily basis, Jen, as well for the loan qualification, your debts, your payment history, how well are you paying? Quite simply because a higher score typically means less likely to file claims, safer risk, so better premiums. Always been the case on auto, always been the case on home. I do have one or two home carriers. Once I start running quotes for you, if I see that the CIS is going to be a challenge, I know we may pivot over to the two home carriers that don't pull that CIS score. So again, always options, but yes, that's always been, it's always
Yeah.
legal. And I don't know if you know, but there's actually a little note or a memo or an email that you get that says, "Hey, Jen, I just want to let you know, um, Homeowners of America pulled your CIS score today."
Yeah, and it's a soft pull. I know some people when they're buying a
Absolutely.
house, they're like, "Oh my gosh," and I'm like, "No, no, no, it's a soft pull." So they don't. And utilities are going to pull your credit score. Almost every type of service these days is pulling your score, whether you know it or not. And then, what are some items to avoid to getting canceled in that 30 to 60 day window? That was asked by a realtor, and so I actually had y'all. Oh my God, I had a client that was canceled. It is such a mess with like 30 days later because they went to inspect the roof or they did some
Mhm.
type of, and he didn't know, right? And they sent the cancellation and he just missed the mail or the memo and we didn't get notified right away. And then the lender forced insurance. Oh my God, it was crazy. So, how do you avoid? I mean, you just bought this new house. How do you how do you know? Like, what
Yeah,
can
I mean, sometimes you're simply not going to know. I know to the realtor's question, I know that they've gone through a new home inspection and that inspection company has gone out. And usually, after every HVAC, roofing, plumbing, wiring, they're saying, but do also please get checked by a licensed fill in the blank, because they're not always able to investigate every single part of the HVAC system or whatnot to confirm that there's not a problem. They don't know. Also, the inspector doesn't know what the guidelines and acceptability is for that specific insurance company that we wrote that home through. There really isn't anything on the buyer side where you can prevent, because, like you said, Jen, you're just there. As a realtor, with my realtor partners, we really try to drive home the fact that it is very important to stay in contact with your insurance agent. It's very important to choose an agent that you're comfortable with or your realtor can vouch for that has years of experience because our job, we're really trying to avoid that too, Jen. We don't like that obstacle. We want a smooth process, particularly for our lender partners and our realtor partners. We want you choosing us to be like the best part of their experience. Um,
Mhm.
but we don't have control of it all either. So it's important for realtors to really just let your clients know, hey, Kathy's going to let you know there's going to be an inspection process. She's going to follow up with you if there's anything you need to know. And then we let our clients know that as well. Hey, here's the quote. This premium is contingent upon a favorable inspection. We put that in writing. We let them know, hey, it's going to be within the first 30, 60 days or so. We will reach out to you as soon as we hear back. No news is good news, but we will let you know if there's anything and we will work through what our solutions are. So it's just important to realize that this is a bit of a moving process until we can get past that inspection. And honestly, for any homeowner on this call, it's why we don't just flagrantly switch our home insurance every year as if nothing bad can happen once we switch. There is an inherent risk to switching your homeowner's insurance. It doesn't mean you shouldn't. It just means that you want to be very careful and make sure that you're in great hands, first to make sure that we're placing it where we think it's going to stick and where we think your client is going to have the smoothest process, all while trying to get you the best rate.
Well, and some of them I would think they can reel you in with a low premium the first year and then they'll go up the second, you know,
It's
sometimes
not just that.
not. Yeah,
It'll
just
go
it.
up in a month.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
Um, another, is there a way to get, and I've always wondered this. I'm like, why do the insurance companies wait till after closing to do the inspection and then the homeowner goes through all this pain of changing and escrow? And is there a way to say, hey, can you like inspect prior to closing? Are they doing that more now because it's such a hot topic?
They so very much are not. Think of it this way, there's a major expense that the insurance carrier is going to absorb by sending that third party inspection team out. There's a cost to the inspection team calling again, trying to get the scheduled appointment. Once, of course, the cost of them compiling the report and getting it to underwriting, the cost of underwriting, reviewing it, and putting their own take on what needs to happen. So, because of that cost, the insurance company isn't going to do that for every quote I have that says it looks good and they're
That's
pretty
true.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. Okay, good to know. So back to the last question on this slide. So
Mhm.
if a carrier goes bankrupt, like that's scary, how protected are people? Like you think have you ever had that happen where they go bankrupt or something happens, and what happens to the people that they insure?
Yes, yes. So I guess we got to back it up a little bit. There's two main types of policies that you can purchase in Texas. One is going to be admitted market. This means that these carriers are licensed to sell insurance in Texas. It means that they are obligated to the regulations of TDI. It also means that they move a little bit slower when it comes to rate adjustments or areas they realize that they have a problem. But admitted market is ideally where we want to be when we're choosing our own insurance company. Then there's the opposite, something called surplus lines. It used to be pretty rare. It's becoming more common, unfortunately. And surplus lines is just a big risk. They are not licensed to write insurance in the state of Texas. They are not regulated by TDI. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want, double their premiums tomorrow if they want to. And in the event that these two categories go belly up and become insolvent, only the admitted market column is going to be backed by the Texas Guarantee Fund. So that's why we want admitted market carriers. We don't always get to pick them. The mini step before you get to the Texas Fair Plan is a surplus lines company. And that means they are willing to write you, but it's not going to be backed by the Texas Guarantee Fund. Now, we could do a whole webinar on this, but there's um, surplus lines carriers who have been around for over 100 years. They're A plus plus on financial, and there's a safe way to go if you have to go that route. But it's just important that you recognize the risk of the Texas Guarantee Fund, the risk of not having them. But the answer to that question is if your carrier goes bankrupt, is the Texas Guarantee Fund going to come in? Yes, if you are admitted market. Definitely no, if you are surplus lines. There's nobody to call if your surplus lines carrier becomes insolvent.
So you have to just go find insurance.
You got to get a loan. At that point, you've had a claim, they became insolvent, and then you need to get a loan to pay that claim.
Oh, if this happens like while you're in the middle of a claim, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. If your own carrier becomes insolvent and you get a non-renewal, honestly, no big deal. We get them all the time. You call your agent and we start that reshopping process just a little sooner than we thought we were going to need to. So it's okay as long as we don't allow a gap.
Oh,
Texas Guarantee Fund steps in when the insolvent company left unpaid claims and unpaid premiums, right? Jen, if you started your
oh.
home policy on October 1st, sadly they become insolvent on November 4th. You just paid them 5,000 for the year. Somebody better pay you back. It won't be your company that just went insolvent. It will be the Texas Guarantee Fund. Because now
Oh,
you have to go pay 5,000 to the next company while
go
you
renew
wait.
or hopefully 5,000. Okay.
Yes. And to answer your question, I have had it happen. I've had it happen with probably three admitted market carriers in the 21 years. It's not fun. The Texas Guarantee Fund has an entire year to return your premium. And as you can probably guess, they will wait till the very, very end. So it's just not a fun process.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
crazy. Um, just before we leave, like, when someone's buying a new house, and even if you have an existing one, but are there any red flags to know before you close as far as like hey, this might cause me to have a higher premium or be on that cancellation list. I would think it's like water heater, HVAC, like age of roof, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, when you're speaking just of premiums and your buyer is willing to go anywhere and take any home, like I'm sure they're so easygoing. You're looking for the newer homes, brand new roofs, farthest from the coast that you can. The norther we get in Houston, like Magnolia, and the wester we get, the safer it is in terms of premium. So if we're just looking for better premiums, that's where we go. New homes, new roofs, new systems, like you said. Challenges or maybe some talking points that we have with buyers is if we notice that it's an older home, we kind of give them a heads up if that HVAC system is old, if your electrical panel is one of the ineligible, if the roof is showing signs of wear and tear, just be mindful. These are some things that the insurance inspection is going to be looking for. So again, it's just kind of a soft planting the seed. Hey, I think we'll probably be okay in the inspection, but given that the wiring is from, 1974, just please be advised that panel may not be acceptable. We'll let you know and we'll let you know next steps from there.
So I'm going to answer this last question and then we're going to go to the next slide. So someone asked, what do you call old? What age? And I'm assuming, Stephanie, you're talking about the roof. So, we see, I mean, we love it when clients use Kathy, but they don't always,
Sometimes they don't.
right? We see all kinds of carriers come across. And we're seeing buyers and homeowners, even when you're going to renew your policy, we're seeing 8 years is kind of if your roof is older than 8 years, even if the inspector says that it's got a 20-year life, insurance companies do not care. That's what I'm seeing. Is that about right? 8 years, is that kind of a good number or
Yes, if the question
less?
was about the roof specifically, yeah, I have one that's 6 years. So if it's older than 6, you're not ineligible. It just means they're going to downgrade that coverage to depreciated coverage on the roof. It's pretty rare. I only have one that's 6. Just about everybody has the 12-year rule on the roof, and the few that
Mhm.
go a little older, they stop at 15 years. So if you are selling a home, it's real important to mention it to the buyer. Sometimes I'll email you separately and say, hey, did y'all already have a conversation before I start talking to them about the age of the roof? Because I don't want to move in or cause any ripples that you haven't talked about just yet. Um, but when it comes to the electrical panels, it's not necessarily age there. It's about specific brands back in the day. When it comes to the water heater, 8 years, which seems kind of new, but if the water heater's over 8 years old, most carriers will say you have to replace it to continue with the policy.
Yeah.
And then just the age of the home, honestly, I'd say maybe 20 to 30 years is still considered new enough when it starts getting older than that, particularly because those systems start breaking down the plumbing system, the wiring system. The rate is really going to be quite a bit higher than the brand new construction or homes 5 years or younger.
Yeah, we've got a client right now and she's about to put a contract in. And I said, hey, let's get ahead of the quote, start calling some people. And it's not it's like a $300,000 sales price. And the quotes she's getting are over $6,000 a year.
Jesus
I think
Christ.
listen, it's an older home. It's crazy. Like it is crazy. So
You
she's
know,
probably not gonna buy it, but
Yes, and honestly, Jen, if we have buyers who have maybe narrowed it down to 2 homes, two, maybe 3 homes, I really encourage you to reach out to your agent partner or send them in that direction and just tell us, hey, I'm kind of even on these two properties. Can you run the numbers, run the clue
I
reports,
did
and the premiums because you're paying this premium forever. And might I add, to
on
this year's
Monday.
rate is going to be better than all the other subsequent years that you live in the home. It only gets higher as you stay in the home and the home gets older. I feel like I'm just a bearer of great news today. But
no, I
bottom
know.
line is if you got 2 homes and one is 4,000 in premium and the other is 2,000 for whatever reason, I think that should be considered before you make the jump and put in an offer and get past that option period.
Placement cost versus actual cash value. I know that that's a big thing when you're deciding how much coverage you need. And even as you're in your home, things are changing. You talked about costs going up. And so your replacement costs could be going up. So what do y'all do? Like, let's say I call you to requote or reshop my policy and say, hey, Kathy, can you shop around and try to get me a better deal than what I have? Tell me about that.
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that I think sets us apart and people don't always love it. Every once in a while we'll have someone who's not very happy about it. We require that you send us your existing policy for a number of reasons. We are not trying to match it like we don't know what we're doing, but number one, we have to confirm that you have homeowners coverage right now. If there's a lapse of 1 day or 300 days, that absolutely determines who's even going to accept you at this point. But this is a good point as well that we want to see what type of coverage do you have right now. I cannot tell you how many times I get the declarations pages from big companies like USAA, Amica, all over that declarations page, it says actual cash value on the roof, actual cash value on personal property. And so many times the client does not know that they have a policy that had so much limited coverage on it. Sometimes it's that the client calls their agent and asks for a reshop. If it's a captive company like USAA or Amica, that agent can't just quote a bunch of different companies like an independent agent can. So what do they do to the lower the premium for you when you're trying to reduce rates? Sometimes, sadly, agents will go in and raise deductibles that you didn't know about or reduce coverages from replacement cost to actual cash value. So we want to see that policy because we will absolutely counsel you on if I cannot beat your rate. I want to point out a few things that I really recommend you changing about your current policy. And so in this case, many times clients simply don't know that they have actual cash value, a major depreciated coverage. And many times, of course, we beat the rate and we bump them up from ACV to replacement cost. But the bottom line is when you're trying to qualify for a home and you're trying to close, actual cash value isn't even allowed. So at least for that first year, if the lender and the underwriting is going through that policy, they're going to look for those indicators and those words to make sure that you have the proper policy, at least your first year. After that, you're on your own. So you want to make sure again that you have a personal agent. This is not like a shop online and just go for the best rate kind of thing, because believe it or not, these words don't show up on your quote sheets. It's coverages A, B, C, D, E, premium, deductibles, and it's not even going to tell you sometimes the way your policy is covered. So how can you really be sure? Make sure you're consulting with your agent. Ask them, do I have replacement costs? And then don't be afraid to say, where in the policy can you show me what you just said?
It's like going through a maze when you're looking at those policies.
Really hard to read.
What is usually excluded in Texas, like things like water backup, foundation movement? These are things that I've seen or heard. Wind-driven rain. Talk to us about like some of the major exclusions on policies.
Yeah, there's four big exclusions that you simply cannot add back. And then we'll get to this list. Most of us all know that flood insurance is completely excluded. You cannot add it back. It's a totally separate policy. Earthquakes, earth movement, foundation movement that you listed here, 100% excluded. You might find one or two carriers where you can add earthquake coverage back. Very expensive to do so, even in Texas. Wear and tear, always excluded. Can't get it added back. If you have a 25-year-old roof and you're just hoping they're going to say, yes, we'll buy you a new roof, it's not going to happen. Wear and tear is always excluded. And then poor workmanship. So this is real important again for certainly our realtor partners, that when these buyers are looking to do work on their home, or the sellers, if they choose a contractor that does a poor job, that is not justification for the insurance company to move in and buy a new roof for that home. So we want to be very careful with our choices and contractors and anybody who's working on the home. Those four you cannot add back. The water backup is an endorsement. It's very important when it comes to pipes protection and inside water damage. So we'll always add water backup to our quotes. There's something called foundation coverage. It's not movement, but it is again related to pipes under the foundation, within the foundation. If there's a leak, it's very costly to get that plumber there. And so that's what that coverage is for. And wind-driven
Oh,
rain.
hang on one second. Sorry. That's usually not included in a policy, right? Like
That's right.
you have to add it back in. So like if you don't ask the question, if your agent's not educating you on this, you might think that you have it if your pipes and your foundation burst, but basically you probably don't. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. And of course, you
Okay.
don't know to ask for it because this isn't your, daily work. We always will add a couple of endorsements that we know you need and you do not know to ask for. So every once in, and of course, we explain all of that in the quotes when we're sending it over to you. Hey, Jen, I've added this, 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 and this. These are endorsements that are optional. If you have questions on them, let us know. We'll explain it. And then, of course, you could remove it if you want to. But once you know what they do and how inexpensive they are, you'll leave them on the policy, hopefully. And then wind driven rain, I really only see this on like TWIA policies. I think we'll be talking about that maybe a little bit later. This just means wind driven rain alone is not claim worthy. So if all that happened, and this has happened at my home, is that the rain seeped in through the windowsills and you maybe have some bubbling on the bottom of your windowsills from some water damage, that's not a covered claim. And that just means that you have wear and tear, right? The sealing around your windows. It's not like the storm caused the opening. It's just that you don't have good sealing around your window. Wind-driven rain is something that all carriers should cover as long as the storm made the opening. So think about something like a hurricane or a tornado. It blew the windows, it broke the windows. There's a complete opening now in the windows, and rain is now pummeling in through those windows. That's not too much of a concern. Everybody should cover that one.
So that it has to be like a named storm.
Not
Like it can't.
necessarily. It could be
Okay.
just a random tornado.
Okay. Gotcha. And then what does extended replacement mean and actually do? The
So
word.
I really like extended replacement cost. Basically, it's an endorsement that we can add. It's an excellent way to add so much more dwelling protection for a very small amount of premium. So this endorsement basically means we will honor an extra 25% of the total cost of your home for a very tiny amount of premium. And better still, you get to keep that number on your dwelling. And why that's important is, as you know, homeowners insurance has deductibles, and these deductibles are based on that dwelling number. So I don't just want to take your 500,000 coverage and bump it to 600,000 because now my deductibles are higher and I just cost you more come claim time. What I would like is kind of a freebie way to honor up to that 600, and I still get to leave those deductibles a percentage of your lower number. Now, this endorsement is not supposed to be so that I can intentionally underinsure the dwelling. I have to insure your home for what the carrier really believes it's going to cost. It's really, truthfully, designed for those, category fives. And Jen, your home is one of 20,000 homes that got damaged by this hurricane. Now everybody needs shingles. And so we're shipping them from Michigan and Montana, and it drives up that cost to rebuild, like a genuine not gouging, just an increased cost. That's really what this endorsement is for. It's an excellent way. I think everybody should do it. It's an excellent way to make sure that you are really covered for perhaps a total loss or just an estimate higher than what you've insured the house for. And it can happen. Mostly with fire, everyone knows total losses are extremely rare in insurance, but a fire will do it very quickly, and even a fire that they got to rather quickly, because what the fire didn't get, the fireman water, then the mold that ensued, it's soot, it's a disaster. So this is an
Okay.
excellent endorsement.
Dogs. Just random, we're changing subjects. So are dog breeds or trampolines still causing exclusions?
100% of the time. Never have I seen in the 21 years that a trampoline is going to be covered. Now, dog breeds, that list just gets longer. It's not like they ever take any dogs off of the list. So the ineligible dog breeds are the ones that, really common ones that we can think of, like the pit bull, the Rottweiler, the German Shepherd, etc. Right? We know all of that, but there's some really silly stuff they've added over the years. The Husky, the Great Dane, just simply because these aren't animals necessarily that are going to cause a problem. It's just that if they do bite, it's significantly more damage, right? The Great Dane, when you look at that, it's not that it's going to bite somebody, but its mere size knocks over small children, and then we have problems, right? So trampolines always excluded, huge liability. But I also want to mention here that um, how many times has someone asked you, Jen, when you've gotten a quote, "Hey, Jen, do you have a trampoline in the backyard? Hey, Jen, do you have a dog? What kind of dog? Does it have a bite history?" We don't, right?
No, you
That
really
applic
don't.
Yeah, and it's on the application. The application that I'm sure we all read when we take 3 seconds to click, click, click and DocuSign. So your signature is there that yes, I promise I do not have this type of dog. And they've changed the question now to say, and I have no intention of purchasing this type of dog. And they've added, nor will I babysit for the dog of any of these breeds. So you can tell throughout the years it remains problematic for them to pay out for these dog bite claims. So, knockout questions, we've got like 30 to 40 knockout questions on every homeowner's application. And you know, the 15 minutes or less is really enticing, right? People
Wow.
just want it quick. Kathy, I trust you, do what I need, blah, blah, blah. So just make sure that you're reading that application. Trampolines, huge liability. There was a point in my life where I had the pit bull, who I still have, and the trampoline and the pool. And I was
You're an
just like,
insurance nightmare.
I'm a wild child, right? But it's very common. And just know that you want to make sure that you're protected for that stuff.
What about a pool? Like I used to live in a gated community and we just moved and I don't anymore. And I'm worried if someone said, "Oh, you got to make sure that you have some kind of secure latch on, to be able to get in my yard because I have a pool."
Mhm.
Like, do I need to worry about that?
Definitely. 100% of the time, if you have a pool or any kind of water source in the back, even a little pond that could be problematic, you always want to keep a locked latch, not just like a latch. The insurance company requires a latch, right? That you click it and you pull it closed. Um, I really recommend that you have a lock, a padlock on the inside that stays closed at all times until you need to let in the yard guy or you're having a pool party. It's definitely your problem. 100% of the time, I recommend if you have a pool that we get an umbrella policy, and that's just an extra $1 million in a bucket in the event that your homeowner's policy runs out of money because someone has tragically lost their life or suffered a major injury because they were in or around your pool area, whether they were invited or not. So even if they jump that perfectly latched and locked gate and they drown in your pool, you are not getting out of this. That family will be rewarded for the fact that your property resulted in the death of a loved one. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah, I do have, yeah.
yeah, they're wonderful. I love them, and umbrella is very inexpensive. So again, just making sure that you have the proper protection and peace of mind.
I just wrote that down on a sticky to tell Fernando,
That's
honeydew
a
list,
that's a
latch,
very small
hey,
sticky.
I know. Um, okay, back to storms, because that really is the reason why we're all going up. It's because so many people are like, "Oh, hailstorm, let me get a new roof." And some were needed and some weren't. I think a lot of people probably abused that system, but
Mhm.
here we are.
Mhm.
Um, what proof should homeowners keep before and after storms?
Yeah, I actually just did a 60-second quick tip on this. So, I recommend that every year or two, just getting your phone, we all have video capability, and walking through each room in your home and just panning from left to right nice and slowly, including your closets, your drawers are open. If you're walking in the kitchen, you've already opened all the upper cabinets, you've opened the lower cabinets, and you're just doing a real slow pan around the room, mainly so that you can remember come tragedy time where everything was. You know, a lot of us store appliances we don't use at the bottom of the pantry or perhaps in a jacket closet or wherever. The garage is just notorious for having tons of stuff we don't use frequently, so you forget what is there. And in times of something really tragic like a fire, it's extremely difficult for you to remember what you had where. And If you want to be paid for the damage of your contents, you must help your adjuster figure out how we arrived at that number. So, on one hand, it's like, oh, why do I have to do this? Because he wants to write a check to you, but he can't just go to his boss and be like, I swear she said she had 100,000 in contents. We have to show for that. So you will have to say, I had X amount of socks, X amount of forks. This is where I got them. This is how much they are now. This was the size of the TV that melted. This is where I got it or where I could get it now. So you just have to know ahead of time, how much stuff do I have? Sometimes when we're quoting, people get really hung up on this number. They're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. And I usually try to settle them down a bit. At the end of the day, there's a low probability you're going to lose everything. And honestly, if you did, do you really want it all back? Let's face it, we all have some stuff we don't need. But to answer your question, the most important thing for me is that you have some video content somewhere of what was inside your home before this loss, before the theft, before the fire, before the hurricane. And just make sure you email those videos to yourself or upload them to the magic cloud.
Yeah, the cloud.
The cloud.
Why are cosmetic damage and no storm in area common denials? Like I've seen and heard that.
Absolutely. So, cosmetic damage is a little new over the last 5 years or so, and they are no longer going to replace your stuff just because it looks bad. So, the best example of this I have for you, some people have metal roofs, right? And these metal roofs get all dinged up in a hailstorm, and then the homeowner's upset. It looks terrible. Agreeably, it does. And they want a new roof. They're not doing that anymore. A metal roof's integrity is not jeopardized just because it's dimpled and it looks really ugly now. So the insurance companies are saying, look, if the only thing that happened to your property or your home or your roof is that it just looks bad, we're not interested. That's denied moving forward. So that's a big metal roof. But think about things like your downspouts and your gutters and any metal parts around your windows and roof, that's excluded now. So just because it's dimpled and ugly doesn't mean they're going to replace it anymore. So we go back to that very first slide. What are other things that they're doing to control loss? This is one of those things. We're not fixing stuff just because it looks bad. If you can prove the integrity of your gutter, like the hail made a hole, absolutely covered. But simply looking bad isn't covered. And the no storms in the area hits on a point that I think is worth mentioning, which is you only have a certain amount of time to claim your damage. In the state of Texas, the statute of limitation is a full year. So you do have a whole year. But sometimes people, those roofers come knocking and they say, oh, I think you've got some damage. Give me your policy. I'm going to try to work on a claim. Well, there's a system that all adjusters and all insurance companies use that will show them all the storms, the size of the hail, when did it happen, how long did it last. And so if Jen is trying to say that she has hail damage, fresh hail damage, and she wants a new roof, well, the adjuster is going to go out and be like, Jen, the last time your area had a major hailstorm was in 2023. I see a couple of dimples up there or a couple of speckles, but nothing we're going to cover. That's outside of your claims period. So that's the hey, there's no storms in the area content.
What exactly is TWIA? You mentioned it before, and what does that acronym stand for?
Yes, it stands for Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. Again, another state-funded program for the homes that cannot get wind and hail coverage in the normal market being the private standard carrier backed by TDI and the Texas Guarantee Fund. So think about really like beachfront properties. Anybody will insure them for everything except wind and hail. It'll be a super cheap policy and it covers fire, theft, lightning, smoke, pipes, etc. But they won't cover the wind and hail because it's just too big of a risk. So then we have to write two policies for you. One is from the normal carrier for all the other stuff, and then we have to write a TWIA policy for your wind and hail specifically. Again, with all the carriers we write, sometimes we find that I've got one or two where I can offer you wind and hail in the normal policy. That might be more expensive than a TWIA plus a non-wind hail, right? So that's really where the agent needs to step in and say, look, I could save you a little bit by putting you in TWIA, but It's a limited policy. It has a double deductible and it's state funded and not backed by the Texas Guarantee Fund. Now, if after all that you do still prefer it, we certainly can, just like that loophole with Texas Fair Plan. As long as I can show that two carriers denied you for wind and hail, we can write you over in TWIA. But again, I'm not going to do it voluntarily.
Are coastal homeowners being targeted for non-renewals or higher premiums more than inland Texans because they're closer to the coast? There's more wind and hail, right? When there's a storm.
Right. Right. So it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, that every area of Texas kind of has their own challenges, but absolutely coastal properties pay much more for catastrophic premiums. That's defined as like the hurricane, the name storm, the tropical cyclones, etc., even when it comes to floods. So, yeah, they're going to have a higher risk, they're going to have a higher premium. But we see areas like Sugarland. Sugarland has just been really um, targeted, for lack of a better word, with high premiums, non-renewals. I'm dealing with a lot of non-renewals from travelers right now from Sugarland. So, and I really don't remember what happened in Sugarland that everybody, the carriers just kind of don't want
Remember
this
either.
risk. Yeah, it's
Mm,
weird. It's the weirdest thing, but it
interesting.
continues. Hmm.
So talking about storms again, that's what we're known for here is why we all
Hmm.
have all this damage. So after a storm, are there any red flags that homeowners should watch for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's real important aside from, checking your home as soon as you can to make sure that you don't see any structural damage, you don't see any internal water entries and things like that. Just be really careful with these storm chasers. I think we've all had our home, someone's knocked on the door and asked if they can jump up on the roof. We don't allow that. We don't recommend that anybody you don't know that you did not call out, hopefully referred from somebody that you know. Nobody should be getting up on your roof, and definitely should not be doing it without your permission. So we want to be real careful with that. Somebody knocking is just somebody looking for the next job. So it's always best to just say no. Give me your card. Great, I'll call around. I'll call you back if I need you to. Anybody asking for your policy information, if you have not yet talked to your agent or filed a claim, nobody should be asking for it. And some of those door knockers will say, "Hey, I'll take care of everything. I'll get it approved. Just send me your policy information." We don't want to do that. Don't share your information with anybody. And basically, anybody coming by trying to say that they're part representing your insurance company, if you or your agent have not filed this claim for you, that should not be happening. So I think, keep your normal safety awareness around you, that honestly, don't even answer the door if you weren't expecting someone to come by. You just got to be real careful with that stuff.
Okay. How often should you review and update your policy?
I'm going to tell you annually. I'm not telling you I think that you should switch it every year simply because of that inherent risk that we talked about earlier. But things are always changing. The guidelines are changing, the coverages are changing. They pull off something. There's a new gap in the way they're going to cover your roof. Maybe there's a new exclusion they've added. Your agent is required to know all of that information. We are inundated weekly from carriers about something different about the policy or something else to be looking out for. And when there's big stuff like rate increases, we already know that we need to be on the lookout for you. Plenty of times I've had, a client send an email or a text and say, "Hey, can you look at my renewal? Let me know if there's anything I need to know." And we reply back, "You're going to love the rate, but I need to explain some major changes that happened to it." They kept the rate stable, but they totally took away two very important coverages that they offered before. Or the rate looks great because they just doubled the deductible, the minimum deductible allowable. So important to just have that relationship with your agent to be able to say, "Hey, I got the packet, look at it and tell me what I need to know. Kathy, is this still the best option for me this year?" And that gives us 30 to 60 days to get you back in that requote queue if we find that it's warranted. So
So
review every year.
if you get a non-renewal letter, how far in advance do they have to give that to you, by the way? Like
The non-renewal?
Yeah, if they non-renew, what, 60 days, 30 days?
All notification has to be 30 days. In some cases, it will be up to 60 days. When you have those companies that are somewhat going insolvent or they're closing zip codes, they'll send it to you as early as they want to. I have 6 month notifications sometimes because they're ready for you to kind of leave right now. So they want to get you all, they want to get you aware of the fact that they're non renewing you as soon as possible, kind of hoping that you jump ship before the renewal date. Makes sense? They're trying to reduce that risk ASAP, but perhaps TDI said no, you can do it at their renewal. And they're like, shoot, okay, let's go ahead and let everybody know right now we're dropping them in December or we're dropping them at their renewal. And then people are sometimes calling us saying, no, I don't want to wait. I don't feel good about this at all. Find me somebody right now.
Yeah, and if y'all do have an escrow account, you've got to shop immediately. Like you've got to check the mail because sometimes people are like, I never got the memo. They have to
Mhm.
notify you by snail mail, right? Even if you have online preferences and stuff, they
That
have to
is
send
correct.
snail mail. Um, because you do not want your mortgage company to force escrow. You do not want that because it's going to be 4 times as much.
And horrible coverage, Jen. Forced coverage from a lender does not have any liability coverage. So remember that pool or somebody getting injured on your property. There's zero liability on a forced coverage policy. There's also zero contents coverage. So if all that happened to you on that forced policy was somebody broke in and took your belongings, there's nobody to call. You have no coverage for that. The lender
Okay.
is protecting the house.
So a couple of questions that I want to get answered, and then we're going to go into the myths, true or false is actually uh, my favorite one, and then we're almost to the end for more questions if you want. So, what if you have a new roof, like let's say around 3 years old, and there's a huge hailstorm, and you're like, my roof is, whatever. I mean, are they going to replace it? Like, what happens?
Great question. Believe it or not, the newer the roof, the more likely you're going to get an easy decision to completely replace the roof, which sounds kind of weird, but I'll say it the reverse. The older your roof is, even if you have storm damage, there's a higher possibility that your claim will be denied. Why? Because when they go up there on that 15-year-old roof, there's tons of stuff going on. There's several storms that might have had hail hits that you didn't know about many, many years in the past. But most importantly, on that 15 to 20-year roof, there's tons of wear and tear, granular loss everywhere, all four slopes, not just the slope that got dinged with the hail, right? Wear and tear is an exclusion. So the older the roof, the more likely they'll see deterioration and then cite that as the overall problem they saw.
Oh,
Just
wow.
yeah. So brand new roofs, 5, 7 years and newer, actually pretty easy to get a new one because the only problem they see up there is going to be all of that hail, and you kind of win every time in that sense.
Okay. And then regarding using an agent, so is there a difference with using a residential insurance agent versus one that does both residential and commercial?
No, there shouldn't be any difference at all. The biggest difference you'll find is using a captive agent versus an independent agent. So, when it comes to licensing in the state of Texas, there's no way to just be licensed on residential. When you have your PNC license, you are licensed in the state of Texas to sell any type of residential or commercial property. Now, there might be agents who specialize or whose main bread and butter is residential over commercial, but I think the bigger difference is when you're selecting agents, there are captive agents who can only sell for that one company. Think of a State Farm or a AAA agent. That's all they can do. And then there are the independent agents who have 15 to 20 carriers that they can write through. I find that your relationship can last much longer with your independent agent because we always have an option to look at. If we don't like that renewal, we will work on it, we will reshop it and find a better option for you.
So how does someone avoid an agent that wants to oversell them coverage? Like how do you know when you're being oversold?
You know, again, if it's someone that you have a relationship with, you're just going to have to spend the time and ask those questions. I think speaking to your friends, your family, your church, your neighbors, who are they insured with? How long have they been with them? Why do you like them? I think that one of the strengths in our agency is that we are not trying to sell you. You will not get a phone call from us. You will not get solicitation from us. We are happy to help you if you call, but we don't need to make that sale, and you're going to know that. I think everybody has great intuition when it comes to talking to people. You can't really do that through email alone, but get on the phone. If you think that you're about to sign with a particular agent, talk to them, ask them questions and say, well, why are you so low on this number? Or why are you so high on this number? And you're just going to get a feel for this. Is this somebody that I can trust? Do I feel like they're coming across genuinely to help me? Or do I start getting that feeling they're following up with me 3 times a day asking if I want to go ahead and finalize the policy? It's not because they care, right? So you just got to find people that you're comfortable with, that other people have recommended, and that you can trust along the way.
So, someone on had a recent water claim. I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm assuming from pipes or something. His first claim in over 10 years. Will this cause my policy to increase upon renewal? Like, what are the chances?
Yeah, I'll say it the other way. The only time that a claim is not going to hurt your premium is going to be weather. So if your water loss was from anything else, pipes, I left the sink on, the water backed up, the toilet overflowed, anything else that happened inside that home, your rate definitely will go up for the next 3 to 5 years. And you know, sometimes people get really frustrated because you already paid the deductible. You had to go through the inconvenience of getting your home rebuilt or repaired. But think of it in the reverse. You were rated because you had a claims-free record. Now that you don't, and this accounts for auto as well, there's now a claim that you've lost that claim. At best, you've lost the claims free discount. In some cases, particularly on the auto side, you've also been knocked down a tier because you've had an at fault versus a not at fault. So, yes. So to put it shorter, the only thing that will not hurt your premium is going to be weather.
Okay. And then, so we've seen a lot of people self-insure. Like, we'll take their application. Oh yeah, no, I own it free and clear.
Mm.
Oh, okay, how much do you pay for insurance? I I don't. I have no policy. Do you have a scenario where you would say, yeah, self fund and walk away from these high premiums? Or do you have the reverse horror stories where you're like, don't do it? Like, what's your take? I mean, obviously you're an insurance person, right? But like
Yeah.
truly, I know that you'll speak. I know you, and I know that
Yeah.
you're the real story. So tell us about this self-funding.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest encounter we have with this is, of course, when we're discussing renewal rates and a rate goes up and somebody's unhappy, and we get the statement, well, I mean, I own my home, so honestly, I just think I might go without insurance this year. To which you're absolutely going to get tough love from me, because if we all know how to do math and you think that you can afford to buy your house again in cash, then you can surely afford the $4,000 premium that we have for this insurance. And yeah, I know it's a what if and a most likely not, but I'm just not going to tolerate someone who feels like it makes mathematical sense to, instead of paying my premium, which increased by $500 for the year, I'm going to self-insure my $700,000 house. You have cash. I think that's great, but it makes no sense to me. If you can afford the cash rebuild of your home, you can certainly afford the premium. Or at best, you can afford the renewal with 5% deductibles instead of the lower deductible. So,
Yeah.
we'll get that discussion every once in a while. As far as a personal experience where someone has left and self-insured and called back crying, definitely no. But we have had people certainly call plenty of times that said, "Oh my gosh, I just had to pay my claim out of pocket because my agent never told me I didn't have this type of coverage, and I'm very upset and I just want to start somewhere else now."
Yeah. All right, so we're going to end with some fun fact myths. See what everybody thinks on here. So, one small claim won't affect your renewal. We already know from your just last thing that that is not true. It will,
Definitely,
unless it's weather
definitely
related.
false. Yeah, false.
Um,
And even to talk about a small claim here, 100%. Sometimes the smaller, the more unreasonable, particularly if we move over to the auto side and you're going to call in that little glass chip, $300 a year increase for the next 3 years. So same on home. We're going to have that discussion. If you're my client, I don't want you to ever call the claimant on your own. You're going to call me. We're going to discuss it. We'll talk about deductibles, estimates, and the likely charge on your renewal.
flood damage is covered under your home insurance.
Never.
False.
Yeah.
We already talked about that. A 2% deductible isn't that bad.
So I'm kind of neutral on this one. And the bottom line with deductibles is this: you have to have the money. You have to be prepared. If you have a $15,000 deductible, you need to have the capability, either through checking, savings, emergency
Mhm.
credit cards, or funding, that if that claim happens, you can cover that deductible. If you find a contractor who's willing to waive your deductible or delete some of that deductible for you, that's insurance fraud. There's no other way to say that. Your deductible is what it should cost you in your claim. And someone who's willing to do that may not be the best choice for you. Because they're not cutting their commission, let's put it that way. They're going to find a way to make up for that through your materials or the labor or the job.
So my neighbor gets a new roof. That means I'm going to too. Like they made a hail claim, I guess.
Yeah. We hear this all the time. And if it were true, so it's definitely false. If it were true, then everybody on the street gets a roof. But there's a number of reasons why this isn't true. Bottom line is that the storm pattern is different. Maybe your neighbor's roof was a 6 year roof and yours was 20 years. And we've just explained why that might be different. I seriously doubt your neighbor has the exact same policy. I doubt they had the same carrier, the same adjuster. There's a number of reasons. Every carrier makes their claim decisions on their own set of rules. It doesn't have to match USAA's rules or AAA's rules. They get to say, I want 16 hits per shingle before we approve it. So there's just a number of reasons why this is going to happen. Slopes are different, trees, protecting some roofs and not the others. Definitely a false statement.
The last one, uh, it's fine if your contractor handles the claim for you. Like, hey, this is turnkey. I'm going to do everything for you. Is that like a red flag? Is it?
Believe it or not, I'm neutral on this one. And again, it goes back to the poor workmanship. I'm always going to have referral partners. Jen, I know you have referral partners, roofers you worked with for 10, 15 years. We have contractors we worked with. All of the people we would refer to you as your agent and your counsel. They're licensed, they're insured. We've known them for 5, 10, sometimes 15 years. So any one of my referrals that says, hey, we're happy to take it for you, absolutely you're going to allow them to do that. They are licensed, they're really experienced in the claims process. Their estimates are so detailed that adjuster is going to say thank you and start writing the check. You start working with Chuck in the Trucks and people who like to write roof replacement 15,000 on a cocktail napkin, you've got problems, and it's just going to cost you so much heartache, so much time. You want to hire the right people. So this one, my answer is going to be, if you have a very experienced contractor, absolutely turn them loose. Adjuster, here's my contractor. Y'all go ahead and get it done.
I have a checklist to help you shop your renewal. I've got a downloadable checklist, totally free. Of course, it's just my little gift to you. Print this bad boy out and use it as a reference guide. Kathy and I put it together to make sure that it was, here we go. I'm going to put it in the chat. So hopefully that's useful to you when you're reshopping, or if you're a realtor on the call, just, print it out and let your clients use it or send it to them. But Kathy, thanks for helping me put that together. But
Yeah, it
thank you
looks
for
great.
coming today. Yeah, we'll stick around for a few minutes for any questions. And then we've also got, actually, I'm going to put this back up. Kathy, well, she's Leger Insurance, Leger, just like her name. So super easy. Find her there. Oh my God. I'm going to go out and get the latch right here. That's a small sticky, but I'll go
Thank
paste
you.
it on my husband's forehead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so
Bye.
much. Y'all have a wonderful
Later.
evening.